also ensure that people's mics are muted. It's very important. Okay, so we'll start in a minute or two. All right. I think it's a good time to start. Okay, so finally, Unlocking Me is here. TVA's Masterclass, the second edition is here. And I mean, I don't know if people are as excited as I am, but I'm super excited. We've been planning this for months, that it is finally here. So please confirm in the chat box that you can hear me clearly and also see me. Thank you, Blessing. Thank you so much. Thank you, guys. Thank you for joining and for joining early. Okay, so we'll start already. Let's have a very brief prayer, and then we can proceed to the agenda for today. Our Lord Almighty, we say thank you for an opportunity to, gather together, rub minds, learn more, and even grow. We appreciate you because we're alive and we're also in good positions that make for, opportunity to even grow and even increase. Thank you because we are thinking about progress. We are thinking about, increase in every way. Thank you, Father. We commit this masterclass into your hands, and we pray that you take perfect control in Jesus' name. Thank you because it's going to be a success, and the facilitators would also be blessed exceedingly in Jesus' name. Amen. Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. I am very excited to be here. I don't know about you, but this is finally a reality, and we can only give thanks to God. We can only give thanks to God for the planning, the preparations, and everything has been smooth. Glory to God. So very quickly, I'll be sharing. Thank you. And I would like if this audience can be very, interactive. I would like if everybody can, at every point in time, drop their comments, drop their questions, or just if you can't hear clearly or you need one thing or the other, there are people on ground to attend to, the questions that you may have. So yes, we welcome all your comments. The chat box is open for anything at all that you want to share. Thank you. So very quickly, I was going to say that yes, I would like to introduce TVA to as many of us that are not aware and that we do not know what exactly TVA does. And I'll also share a bit of perspective on why TVA is organizing a masterclass and what the end goal really is. So what is TVA? And this is for many people who have not, been part of our village meetings or have not really, heard about TVA. So basically, TVA is a group of people. It's an organization. Please mute your mics. It's very important. Thank you. So TVA is an organization, a group of young people, really young people who come together to rub minds. You know, we say that, you know, our mandate is to equip every heart and you know, strengthen and empower every hand. So basically, you know, focusing on the minds of people, especially the young generation, because really a lot has taught already, and it might be somewhat difficult in societies, you know, from top to bottom, but there's a lot that we can still do, you know, from down upward, right? And so that's why TVA focuses on, you know, on undergraduates, on secondary school students, on younger generation, the young generation, because we believe that with hearts that are set right, and with, you know, the kind of knowledge and information that empowers people, you know, Nigeria is going to take a better shape in a few years to come. And so that's what TVA stands for. And we do a lot of things. You know, this is one of the things we do. We organize master classes, webinars. We invite people, you know, to just come and share. People who we believe have sound minds and bright minds, intellectuals. You know, we engage them in discussions, and we just want to learn a lot from them, such that, you know, there is a cross-fertilization of ideas, and we are able to be a brilliant generation of people who in Nigeria to, you know, to be. So we do, we organize webinars, master classes. We also have our weekly meetings, and we call it village meetings. So it's more like, you know, your minds coming together to say, okay, we are discussing this particular issue or this subject today, and everybody then, you know, weighs into the discussion such that we're able to have a robust discussion, and then people's minds are enlightened. So basically, that's what we do in our village meetings. And of course, if you have not been joining, after the master class, we would resume the village meetings. The holds on Saturdays by this time. So that's not all. We also have a foundation arm, where what we do is to actually go out to secondary schools, also share wisdom, share insights, you know, excellence-oriented stuff with secondary school students, just to sort of motivate them and encourage them. So we do a lot of other things, you know, and we also share content even on our social media pages. So beyond, you know, you're focusing on undergrad, secondary school students, we also try to reach out to the entire populace, just to be sure that we are churning out, you know, helpful content at every point in time, such that the Nigeria of our dreams is eventually built. So that's what TVA stands for, and we would also, you know, be very glad to have you with us. So for this masterclass, you know, last year we had a masterclass and it was themed Skill Me Up. And this year, you know, it's themed Unlocking Me. Awesome, awesome. And the idea really is just so that, you know, people are really able to, you know, because when you have knowledge, you are empowered, basically, right? So what we are trying to say with Unlocking Me, for example, is that there are potentials locked up inside of us, and everybody on this call, I am sure, has, you know, one or more potentials. And so what, you know, we are set to do here is to bring people who are doing well in those areas, who are doing well, you know, who have unlocked their own potentials, and are then able to come together. So we have an assorted, you know, a mixture, you know, an assortment of people who are doing well in those areas, who will then help us to launch out, you know, in our own, you know, based on what we feel we have been called to do, right? So this is just an unleashing, you know, sort of, this is an unlocking, this is an enablement, an empowerment for us, you know, to be really who we were meant to be, by learning from the people who are already doing what we want to do. And I hope that creates a lot of context for us. So without wasting so much of our time, and as you already know, we have a lot of content, you know, a lot of resource persons lined up every Saturday till September, and you don't want to miss any of it, because they are all speaking on different, you know, topics. So today, we'll be dealing with personal development and branding. I'll also be talking about breaking mental and cultural biases. I feel like these are very important, you know, issues that sort of hold people down. And if we're able to receive, you know, better perspectives from people who are doing well, it will then help us to, you know, unlock ourselves and really begin to live the way we want to live and fulfill our potentials. So we have Adebimpe Mosanya with us, and she's going to be speaking to us about personal development and branding. Awesome. So, I mean, to give a bit of background, I think this is like the third or fourth time that BT will be speaking in TBA, and I just want to shout out to you because you've been very supportive, no stress. I love people that want to just tell them, please, we want you to, and without any stress, they are stretched out their arms to say, you know what, TVA, I love you, and I would always come out for you. And BT is one of those persons. We love you so much. We appreciate you. Thank you for joining us. You are awesome in every way. It didn't even take us so much time to say this topic, BT, and that was sorted. Thank you so much. We appreciate you. The committee as well appreciates you. So I'll briefly read out BT's profile, and afterwards I'll share something exciting that I also found about her, and then I would welcome BT. So meet our facilitator. Thank you so much. So Adebimpe Mosanya is an asset group of Adebimpe, Martins, Agbo, and Shegun, Denton's Akers Law, an international law firm in the general corporate and commercial law. She has garnered skills and experience on transactions in the energy sector, regulatory compliance, mergers and acquisitions, project financing, and general legal and business advisory services, among others. Adebimpe is also a business and brand development professional who facilitates trainings in areas such as personal and self-development, brand management, sustainable growth and development, etc. She's the founder of BT Consulting, a brand management company, and a founder of the Cognition Hub, an organization aimed at creating and adding global value to every student and young professional. Based on her brand, she has the opportunity to facilitate numerous trainings and webinars in different industries and sectors on local and international levels. She aims to build a sustainable brand for herself and as well be a go-to expert in everything energy, business, and career development. I trust that we are already, sending our shout outs, our wows, and our welcomes, in the chat box. Thank you so much, BT, for agreeing to do this with us. Reading your profile again is inspiring for me. And I'm like, okay, what exactly am I doing, right? Thank you so much. You're an inspiration to, a lot of us, and we love you so much. So a fun fact I want to share with BT, I mean, beyond the fact that we know she's a socialite, she likes to enjoy herself, she's always, her makeup is always on fleek, always having fun and all of that. I also spied on some of our accounts, and I decided to extract, a comment that somebody, wrote about her. And I felt it to be very, useful for this audience, just for you to have an idea that even amongst our colleagues and our senior colleagues, they have said these wonderful and beautiful things about her. And just so it sort of opens our mind to receive, the things that she would share with us. So one of those, comments that I read, the person said that amazingly outstanding is a phrase that comes to mind whenever I think of being awesome. The person said, she's that lady you want on your team. She handles issues with extreme professionalism and diligence. You definitely cannot quantify her capabilities when you work with her. Talk of a lawyer with brain, an entrepreneur with immeasurable ideas, and a friend who is always there to see you through different ideas. Bimpe earns my highest recommendation. And I mean, I couldn't have read that and just keep it to myself. No. And I hope that our minds are already, excited. Our appetites are already wet, to hear what exactly BT would like to share with us on the topic personal development and branding. Thank you so much, BT. You have the floor now.
Okay. Hi, guys. I don't even know how to act after the entire introduction. Adebimpe, thank you so much. I do appreciate the.
You're welcome.
I will call it a drama. It's not no. All right.
Thank you.
So please confirm if you can see my screen. If you can see my screen, because I'm about to share it.
Yes, we can.
All right.
Although we prefer if it's a yes, it's on slideshow mode now. Thank you.
Okay, that's good. So hi everyone. Adebola has done sufficient introduction, so I need not introduce myself. But just for brand purposes, because that's the essence of me talking to you guys. My name is Adebimpe Mosanya, alias BT. BT is basically my brand name, and this is me speaking to you guys about branding. So you have to see the reason why I am branding myself. And one thing you have to understand is you never stop branding, you never stop developing yourself, and you never stop discovering yourself. That's like the first thing to doing anything in this life. And I'm really always excited when people invite me to speak about personal branding, personal development, because for you to invite me, it means that you've thought it worthy, or you've thought it important enough for yourself, for you to discover yourself, for you to develop yourself, for you to brand yourself and make good use of it, of the opportunity. And of course, that opens a lot of doors, to you. So I'm always very elated to speak about it. And that's why I don't think I can ever reject, whether monetary or not, anybody that calls me to speak on personal branding, corporate branding, because that is the brand I have built for myself. So when I was doing the publicity for TVA, I said, BT is all about brand. BT is the brand, but BT is all about brand, because that's what I talk about. So I hope that, as we go on in this session, you guys are open, you're receptive to listening, learning. Please don't take it as, don't take it as one of those classes that you just listen to and that's it. Listen, learn, be open to it, and make sure that you put it into practice, because it will not just benefit you. It will not just benefit me that, oh, I am speaking to persons and they are, willing to listen, but it will benefit you on the long run, because by the time you discover yourself, you develop yourself, you brand yourself, and then you put yourself out there for opportunities to come to you. And of course, you make money out of it. That would give you some sort of comfort. It will give you some sort of conviction for yourself. And regardless of whatever comes your way, regardless of whatever people say to you, because you have already known yourself, you have discovered yourself, you have developed yourself, and you have branded yourself to the best of your knowledge, it just gives you this high esteem. It gives you so much self-confidence in yourself. And regardless of what people say, it doesn't affect you on a personal basis. So that's really the end result of what I'm going to be speaking to you guys about. But then I added LinkedIn optimization and CV building. That's just an addition. And the reason why I did that was because recently a couple of people, first of all, I understand that the target audience are, mostly undergraduates or graduates. And, I feel that it's necessary to also mention that although technology is taking over, social media is a tool for personal branding as well. And then a couple of people have also been buzzing me on, reviewing their CV, how to get employees to give them, employers rather, to give them jobs and all of that. So I included that as a side, but I would focus on personal branding. So now let's move into it. BT's branding chain. All right, so before you get into personal branding in itself, there are different processes that you would have gone through. And for me, I think it's a chain, right? We have stage one, which is the self-discovery process. You cannot brand yourself in something without first discovering what you want to brand about. You cannot say, I am something without not necessarily, training yourself to do that thing, or knowing that you even have the capacity to do it, in the first place. And that's why I'll keep repeating that you cannot quantify your capabilities until what self-discovery has been effected. Because the only way you can know what you can do is if you actually discover that you can do those things. And that's how you'll be able to identify that these are my strengths, these are my weaknesses, these are my opportunities, and these are the threats that will stop me in the way of getting to my career goals. So now stage one is the self-discovery, and that's where your SWOT analysis comes in place. S stands for strength, W stands for weakness, O stands for opportunities, and then T also stands for threats. That's stage one. Then we have stage two, which is the self-development internal implementation, right? Sorry, give me a minute. Okay, that's fine. So stage 2 is where we have self-development, internal implementation. This is the point where, having discovered your strengths, weakness, opportunities, and threats, you are able to test it. You are able to have conversations with people. You are able to say, okay, how do I go about this? How do I do this? Okay, should I just, implement it internally amongst your peers, amongst your friends, before you then push it out? Then we have stage 3, where it's the personal branding in itself. That's you putting yourself out there, marketing yourself as a product. If you notice when they are doing all these ads, the advertisements on TV, and they put something online, the only reason why you remember that thing is because of the way in which they have advertised it. For instance, I would never forget that Ethel's song is 444, and that's because when watching Big Brother Naija, one way or the other, over a period of time and consistently, they've been playing 444, 444. So anywhere I hear 444, I automatically affiliate it with what Ethel. The same thing with Pepsi, Coke, different products with their different ad designs, with their different ways of branding, with their different ways of marketing. So now imagine you then putting yourself in that shoe. Like, okay, I, Adebimpe Mosanya, BT is my name. These are the things that I can do. This is what I have the capacity to do. Hello guys, please patronize me. That is you putting yourself out there as a project, putting yourself there as a product. So people patronize you, people buy into you, and then you are able to, share your capacities to people. And this does not just happen within your team or within your peers or in your place of work, but it happens to every single person, because by the time you do this on a consistent basis, people then see that, okay, this person knows how to do this thing. And for this person to know how to do this thing, on a consistent basis, I will consider this person as a go-to expert. So anytime they think of branding, anytime they think of anything LinkedIn, somebody thinks of BT. Why? Because over a period of time, BT has developed herself in this particular field. And because of that, people now see her as an expert in that field. Do we understand that? Now let's move to page 3. So introduction and punchlines. If you put your career in the hands of others, your organization, your boss, your partner, or even your parents, what you do is you risk not going where you want to go and not doing what you want to do. This is a practical example of an employer to an employee relationship. There's little or more that you can do in that relationship. Why? Because you're literally restricted to the scope of your employer. You can't do more than what your employer dictates that you do, or you can't do more than what is in the terms of your employment letter. So because of that, you're not expressive. And that's why sometimes you find yourself, let me just limit this to students of law. I've had several conversations with law students, and I'm like, okay, why exactly are you studying law? Most of them have reasons, say, oh, my father wants me to study law, my mother wants me to study law. Oh, I feel law is just a professional course and I want to, be respected in the society. Most of them are not always thinking about it as their career or their passion or something. And that's because they've put their career, they've put their life, they don't have any plans. They just put it in the hands of one thing or the other. But now it's time for you to take the step. You have acknowledged that, guy, there is more that I can do within myself. God did not just create me to work for somebody. He did not just create me to just be there. He made you because he wants you to give value. He wants you to be able to do certain things. So by discovering yourself, you are able to understand that I have the capacity to do certain things. Over a period of time, you have conversations with your friends, your colleagues, different people. And then you discover that when they say, describe this person, they're able to say, oh, BT is this kind of person that does this, she does that, she does that. But you, unconsciously, you don't realize that you actually do these things. But you jot them down that, okay, for this person to tell me that I can do this, it means that the person has seen me do it, and the person trusts that I can do it, and the person knows that I have the capacity to do those things. So you point it out that, okay, this is one of my strengths. How do you now develop it? That's stage 2, internal implementation. If they've identified that I can do this thing, I think I need to pick up on that skill and then train myself in it. And that's why I said, wake up. So if you're not working to realize your own dream, you're definitely most working to realize others. And that's why some people live a normal life. They were born, they went to school. After school, they probably started working in a 9-to-5 that pays them 50,000 or 70,000 or at most 100,000. And they're living a normal life. They're probably staying in a 1-bedroom mini flat. They get married, they give birth to thousands of children, they grow older. And then you that you're now their child, you're now wondering, why is my father like this? What's going on? It's because they just take life the way it is. But thanks to God, our generation now has come up. Technology has taken over. So many things are developing. Why not then take advantage of it? Why do you want to just live a normal life? All in the name of, I don't know what to do. I don't know if I can do it. Why are you doubting yourself? Why don't you just sit down, think about it, ask your friends, ask your colleagues, ask your parents. Mommy, when I was young, what do I used to do best? What do you think I know how to do? Let me give you a personal story. When I was younger, my mom says that I used to teach my classmates I think in primary 1. She said I should teach them. I used to teach them. And in my mind, I'm like, what do I know that I used to teach them, different things. And then because of that, I got double promotion, as a young girl. And then I got to secondary school. I didn't realize that out of 26 people in class, I was getting 17th position. And then I went to meet my mom and I'm like, excuse me, the mother that gave birth to me. You told me that when I was younger, it's like I was intelligent. But now it's like I'm getting 17, 19 over 26. What is going on? It's like I'm not as smart as you think I am. But then over a period of time, when I got to university, I started developing myself that if I could be that smart, secondary school came about. Maybe something was distracting at that point. And then, university came up, I started developing myself. And then I am who I am today. I am not poor. I am not, I am not smart. I'm a very intelligent person. And I keep hyping myself every day. I keep telling myself that Adebimpe, BT, you are this, you are that. And that's because I am just reaffirming the things that I know I can do. Most times and sometimes imposter syndrome comes to play that, is it possible that I can actually do this? Or is it possible that I have the capacity to do it? But then I just take it away that, you know what, don't think about it. For you to do this, for people to see this in you, it means that you have it in you. So you guys, wake up, realize your own dream so that you don't end up achieving others' dreams. Now, let's move to definition of key terms. Now, what is branding in its entirety? Before we talk about personal branding, when you're talking about branding, you either talk on personal branding or you talk on corporate branding. But now our focus is personal branding because we're talking about ourselves. But branding in itself is the promotion of particular product service by means of advertising and distinctive design. It's also a marketing practice used to create a name, symbol, and design easily identifiable to belong to a person or company. It is also the promise of a person to its customers. That is what branding is. Sometimes people mistake branding and marketing, and it's actually understandable because branding in itself is what people see. Branding in itself is the perception of others in what you are selling to them. But marketing is getting people to actually buy that thing. So let's not even move to the sales part of it. We're talking about personal branding. Now, if we're moving to personal branding and defining personal branding as it is, this talks about who you are. It talks about what you stand for. It talks about the values that you embrace. And this goes down to what you say yes to, what you say no to. If somebody comes to me, okay, so let me give you a practical example. For one of my businesses, BT Events, I do event decoration, event management in its entirety. And then when I first of all started, I started as an ushering company. I used to take a couple of girls in my uni, and then I brand BT badge. I give them. You probably think that the company has been running or has been in existence for the past 3 years, but we literally just started. And then I got a job for, I think, yes, somebody reached out to me. So usually I charge 7,000 naira per usher. So how I get money is I probably give the ushers like 6,000 naira. and then I get 1,000 naira. So at the start of the business. And then I got a job that it was a club activation. I think they wanted to launch a particular club on the island. And then they offered to give my girls 20,000 naira each. And then they offered to give me as the head, usher, 50,000 naira. As at 200 level when I started this work, they wanted to give me 10. They wanted me to get them 10 girls. That would be 250,000 naira, right? In my mind, I have cashed out. Are you joking? You want to give me money? And then they said it was a club activation. So I asked them that, okay, what am I required to do? And they said, oh, my girls will come dressed in bomb shorts and spaghetti. They'll stand around welcoming people in. And the guy now said, and now, in the night, he was just telling me, and I'm like, okay, what are you saying in essence? And then he was just saying that, and why am I doing like a small girl that anybody that wants to come. So God who made me, it was quite, for me, I'm like, it was extremely tempting. But because the tagline of my event, BT event, is professionalism and class, I looked at it and I said, to be honest, high-class prostitution. You want me to bring girls so that at the end of the day, some guys will be able to take those girls home. What am I encouraging? So one day in future, if BT events now blue, they'll say that, oh, she did this when she was younger and all of that. So that particular decision I made aligns with the values that I embrace. And that is where personal branding comes in place. Because of my person, because of my moral values, I decided to reject those things. Not because any other person would not do it, but because these are the things that I have decided that I would not do. I decided to go ahead with it. So those are the values that you embrace. And that's what your personal branding is about. It's how people see you, the perception you give others. One thing you have to understand is you cannot control people. You cannot control how people see you. The way I am seated right here, a lot of you will probably have one thing, or the other to say. If people are saying something about you on a consistent basis, just know that you're probably giving them that vibe. You're probably giving them that, for BT to be like this, it means like she's like this. When I was in university, I was a principal partner of Equity Law Firm. It's a chamber in Lagos State University. And then when I graduated, I was having a conversation with one of the executives, and she told me that, BT, you're very strict, you're extremely strict, and you are very wicked. And in my mind, I was literally just being professional. Why are you calling me strict? What did I do? But in my mind, I was just professional. And then I discovered that one of my strengths, which can also be a weakness, is being bossy and authoritative. There are instances where I can be extremely assertive, that you're probably thinking that, why is he talking to me like that? But my intentions are not ill, but because that is how I am. That's how I have seen myself to be. So you have to understand yourself. So because I have now understood that I can be they can take me to be a very bossy person or an authoritative person or an assertive person. When I'm speaking to my employers at the office and they say, Binke, why did you do this? Why did you do this? You did this like this, and they're trying to correct me. If I'm responding, because I have now understood that if you are assertive, they will say that you are being rude. So just calm down on your tone. And then I tell them that, hi, ma, I did this because I did this. And I'll be smiling while saying it so that they don't misunderstand me and say that, I'm being assertive for being assertive sake, or I just want to be rude. So that's you understanding yourself. So like I said, personal branding is knowing who you are, what you stand for, the values you embrace,
Hi, BT. Hello, BT. Are you there? Hello. We can't hear you in case you're speaking. Hello.
Okay. Hello, sorry, I went off. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we lost you for a bit, but we can hear you now.
So tell me where you lost me. I'll start from there.
Okay, so you were saying you were on the point about people misunderstanding, who you are. So you have to be, definitive about how you want to be perceived. You were talking about how you discovered that you can be very assertive. So at work, you try to, express yourself in a more polite manner. I think that's where I got you last.
Thank you so much, Adebola. So basically, okay. So yeah, I was explaining that part of it. I then continued to say that over a period of time, I then discovered in my branding journey that the only part I showcase to people is my professional part. And I feel that, sometimes that can be misconstrued because I see instances where maybe I meet a mentee outside and I'm with a couple of friends and I'm talking and vibing and they're like, hey, is this how BT is? Are you serious? So she's this friendly. So she's this. And I'm like, okay, hi, good afternoon. I am human too. Do you understand? So that's why over a period of time, I then consistently started posting my informal life. Other than branding, other than associates at dentists, ACAS, I started posting, if I go out, I'm chilling with my friends, you're probably seeing my pictures, you're seeing my videos. And that's why in my introduction, Adebola can say, oh, she's slaying on this, she's slaying on that. It's because I have made you see that. And that's where personal brand, that's the power of personal branding. You are able to influence the perception of people. People will definitely have a perception. Understand that you cannot control perception. People will definitely see you in a type of way. You cannot even try to act perfect. You cannot say, oh, I want to be like this. I want to be. They will see you for who they can see you for. But what personal branding will do is you are able to now control that perception to a very large extent if you consistently brand yourself. So personal branding is also about, building your reputation, creating an image of yourself for the outside world, and marketing yourself as an individual. The intentional effort to promote yourself in a way that establishes credibility and builds authority is personal branding. Next slide. Okay, so now getting started on personal branding. Now, we have identify, we have test, and then we have publish. These are just 3 words that explain the different stages. If you remember in my first slide, I said the first stage is your self-discovery SWOT analysis. The second is the internal implementation, that's self-development, and the third is personal branding. So you first of all identify, you test, and publish. If anybody says, what did you learn from BT's personal development class? First, you need to identify. Second, you need to test. And last, you need to publish. What are you publishing? Is it a book? No, you are the thing that you're publishing. You are a product that you are selling. You are the book that you are publishing. You need to take yourself as all these inanimate objects so that you are able to understand that you are looking at yourself in a third-party perspective and you are able to express it beyond, looking at it from your own perspective. So now, stage 1, self-discovery SWOT analysis. Your strengths. These are the things that, you are looking at yourself and you're literally telling yourself that, what can I do? How good am I? Sorry, give me a minute. Okay, what can I do? How good am I in these things? You have conversation with your friends. What do you guys think I'm good at? etc. Your weakness, the only way you are identifying your weakness is so that you are able to manage and control them. Like I mentioned, the reason why I feel that sometimes I can appear to be assertively rude is because I have identified that I am quite bossy, I am quite authoritative, and because of that, people can misunderstand it as being rude. So I'm able to control and manage them. So people that say, I don't want to identify my weakness because it will weigh me down, you're telling yourself a lie. Identify it so that you manage it and you control it. Then your opportunities. If you identify your strengths, you are able to put yourself out there for those opportunities that will come to you. You are able to say, okay, I think I qualify in this thing, so I should register for it. And then your threats, things that you think will pull you back, things that you think that, oh, now that I have identified my weakness, what are the possible things that might hold me back? That's your threat. Now, stage 2 is the internal implementation, self-development. How do you do these things? When you have identified your SWOT, when you have done your SWOT analysis, and you think that there's a need for you to register for class or implement it or learn about the new skill or say, people say that you're good at this thing, but to be honest, if you look at yourself, you probably do not have requisite knowledge for it. Register for classes, get requisite certification, practice, network, let loose. If you make mistake, all done that, nobody will beat you. The first time I had a webinar on personal branding, I didn't know jack. I literally just read a couple of online, and then I said, okay, this is what personal branding is. And then I started talking, and because of my assertive branding process itself, not necessarily have to live that person's life, but literally learn one or two from that person. Update your social media accounts. I don't like when I hear youth or people like us saying that, oh, I'm not active on social media. Being active on social media defines a lot of things. You have to define what you are there for. I understand that it can have its ills and all of that, but you control these things. If you don't want to do it again, you will not do it again now. But if you know what you're looking for, you update your social media accounts and you're able to build up your brand on it. Technology is taking over. It has even actually taken over. So you can actually not escape this thing. So why not just control it? Define your audience. Who do you want to be talking to? Create content, webinars, vlogs, storytelling, do so many things. There are a lot of options. So brand yourself. That's the basic thing out of it. Now, social media as a tool. I'm going to use LinkedIn as a focus point, but here we have LinkedIn, we have Instagram, we have Facebook. I know people don't use Facebook anymore, but yeah, we have Facebook, we have Snapchat, we have TikTok, and then we have Twitter. People use TikTok to do a lot of dancing. If you know me, you see that I've done a couple of TikTok videos. Most of my TikTok videos are just for fun. But guess what? A lot of people make money on TikTok because they're either using TikTok to say, maybe there's a trending challenge or there's a trending thing, and they're just, I don't know if you guys have seen a couple of TikToks that they'll play the sound and they're pointing here, they're pointing here. You're learning it, but literally that's the way to go. So I'm going to use LinkedIn as a focus point. Now, what is LinkedIn? Let's not even go into all this. Well, basically, LinkedIn is a social network used for professional networking, career development, etc. Like Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, and a dozen of other social networks. LinkedIn is also a social network. And because of our professional lifestyle, most people, most employees, or most employers rather, and most recruiters are always looking, to having your LinkedIn link, your LinkedIn URL. So you need to develop yourself on LinkedIn. Check how people brand their profile. If there's a need for you to seek for professional advice to optimize your profile, please do that. And stop dulling yourself. It's a networking site. I always tell people that there are 3 ways to actually gain career success. One is by your academic grades. The second is by your business development skills. And the third is by your network. Who do you know? If you're academically excellent, is that the end of the road? No. You have your business development skills, your hard skills, your soft skills, you have your networking skills. Who do I know? Who can I reach out to that can help me? So develop yourself in these 3 things. 1, academic grades. 2, your networking skills. And 3, your business development skills. Ensure that you have 3/3. If you don't have 3/3, do not kill yourself. have 2/3, but never have 1/3, because that's where it's very dangerous. Only lucky people or few people get the opportunity to scale through. Then setting up your LinkedIn profile, use a professional picture. I intentionally use 2 pictures. These are pictures of myself. One is probably a selfie that I took in my house that I was just bored. And then the second is when I went to photographer and said, please take a profile picture. Take me a good picture. It's more standard, so you definitely use picture 2. Have a compelling headline. Please don't lie. I've chatted with a couple of people that I'll see principal partner of something chambers. You probably think that I'm networking with my fellow lawyers, but they're just principal partners of student chambers in their university. Do not lie. If you are a principal partner of a student chamber, put it in brackets. Principal partner 1, equity law firm, brackets open, student chamber, Lagos State University. Don't say, because that's you lying. I mean, I don't like when people lie. So literally, do it for yourself. Don't put out a false image of yourself. Then step 3, talk about yourself in your bio. Step 4, talk about your work and experience section. People are actually watching. If you think that people are not watching you, people are watching. Look at a practical example, and I'm happy that it happened here. Adebimpe literally just went through my LinkedIn profile, and then she saw one of the recommendations, because I think I remember that particular recommendation. I don't know, I can't remember who it's from, but I think I remember that particular recommendation. I couldn't have thought that anybody would look through it, but she then looked through it. So people are watching. So you need to develop yourself and brand yourself so that people will see that you're doing it and you're also doing it for yourself, so that you grow, in your career success. Then the actual curriculum detail. There's a difference between your CV and your resume. Your resume is a very short, concise, curated collection of your professional experience. And then your CV is in-depth. If you're looking to apply for a job in a particular role, send your resume. Don't give me too much story. They're just looking towards your work experience. And if it's your CV, if you're just a graduate trying to apply, you can put down your professional experience, volunteering experience, your skills, etc. The difference between CV and resume is the length, the content, and the purpose. Ensure to understand this. So when you're applying to any law firm for internship or graduate trainee, or send your CV, because you are not an experienced hire. They don't need your resume because you don't have a work experience. So send your CV and develop it. Your CV has no length restriction. It's a detailed and comprehensive document. Make sure you go all out. Everything that you have done in this life, put it down there. Then your resume is straight to the point. Most times, people that use resume are people that are experienced. Probably they have 5 to 6 years work experience. Then use a template. When you're developing your CV or your resume, either you actually consult an experienced person or you use the template to proofread and thoroughly edit. I've particularly seen different CVs that were sent to me that they made a mistake, formatting issue. Please, you have to encourage yourself in these things. The way you put yourself out there is how people see you. Sometimes because of somebody's formatting issue, I can just skip your CV. Do you understand? So make sure that you avoid the use of vague statements, use legible fonts, etc. Here, I just gave so I'll just read this and end. Here is a description of somebody who is trying to apply for something. Toby Gray is a motivated, adaptable, and responsible computer graduate seeking a position in an IT position which will utilize the professional and technical skills developed through past work experience in this field. He has a methodical, customer-focused approach to work and strive to drive things through conclusion. He has over the years managed to launch and migrate. He has over the years managed the launch and migration of 2 major IT systems, which was completed on time and within budget. Now, look at this with the second one. I am a hardworking, I hate to see this. I am a hardworking individual who enjoys working. I am excellent at meeting deadlines. I have 2 years experience in business, and I would like to contribute to a business with my excellent skills and past work experience. I believe if you give me this job, I will not disappoint you. That's just extremely vague. Do you understand? So if you're building your CV, ensure that you use great terminologies, you're extremely professional in it, and make sure it's something that people are interested in seeing. I hope by this, I have spoken about, I've covered field. I tried to rush the CV and the LinkedIn part because of time, but I just hope that you guys are able to understand that there is a need for you to brand yourself. And before you brand yourself, ensure that you first of all develop yourself, you you first discover yourself, rather, you develop yourself, and then you brand it. Like I always say, you cannot quantify your capabilities until what self-discovery has been effected. Thank you guys so much. I really appreciate the invite, and I hope to talk to some of you next time.
Excellent, excellent. I hope that everyone on this call is dropping something wonderful in the chat box, because I mean, I shouldn't even ask for it. Thank you so much, DT. Thank you so much. As you were talking, I remember that we had the conversation like this. I think it was last year. We had the webinar, and please confirm you can hear me.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Oh, okay, thank you. So we had a webinar, and I can't particularly remember what the topic was, but we invited you, and you spoke about strengths, weaknesses, and all. And I was like, wow, this is really wonderful. So in my mind, I was already calculating, like, when next are we having a webinar, a masterclass, where we're actually going to delve into this subject of branding, personal development, self-discovery. So I've had it in my mind for over a year now. So the moment we decided we were having this masterclass, I said, I mean, I don't know for any other session, but for this session, for personal development, for BT must be here, because I wanted you to share all of that insight with a larger audience, and I wanted you to go, even deeper into it. And I really appreciate, the effort and, all that. I mean, you did slides, and the slides are beautiful. Thank you so much. You were able to express yourself in very relatable language, considering that most of our audience, they are undergraduates and all. I love this so much. I appreciate you. I have a question, and I hope that people who have questions will also drop them in the chat box within the next minute or two, because we have to run. So just a question from me. So you mentioned that in identifying, in discovering yourself, it's important to look out for your strengths, think about it, ask people your strengths, your weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Now, what if I actually sit down to think about it? I am multi-talented, but I also feel there's a part of me that still feels there's my strengths. I don't know all my strengths, right? And I've asked people, I don't know. I just feel like there's, please mute your mic. I feel like there can be more about me than what I already know. And I've even asked people, right? And they've told me, oh, you're good in this way, you're good in that way. Won't I be boxing up myself? If you get what I mean, won't I be boxing myself if I say, oh, these are all my strengths, and there are still actually more that I don't know, and people have even not mentioned to me? I don't know if you get my question.
Yes, I do. Thank you very much, Adebimpe, for that question. So if I understand you correctly, you're basically asking, in a situation where you have different strengths, do you implement them at the same time? And even if you're going to do that, won't that be too stressful on your path, right?
Yes, and another part to that question is, what if I actually do not know all my strengths? Won't I be boxing myself?
Now, I mentioned something about branding. I said that branding first starts with self-discovery, and then it starts with development. As I am now, in you people's mind, I'm a go-to expert to anything branding. But you have to understand that over a period of time, you cannot actually stop developing yourself, because as you grow older, you discover new things about yourself. You keep self-assessing every day. There are certain things that people tell me that I do, that I do not accept that I do them, and that's because I've not seen that I actually do those things. But it's possible that in a couple of years to come, I will see that I actually do those things, and I would like to develop myself and discover that part of me. Do you understand? That's on one part. On the second part, in a situation where you have so many things that you're very good at, it's possible for you to make one the means to the end of the other. Now, let me give you a practical example. I am currently, practicing law in Denton's Acres Law as an energy and project finance lawyer. And if you see in my profile, I mentioned that I aim to build. I didn't say I have built. I aim to build a brand in everything: energy, business development, as well as, brand. And that's because I know that these are the areas that I have discovered, myself in. I currently do event planning. I currently do brand consulting. Am I overwhelming myself? Sometimes I can say, yes, I am. But did I start all of them at the same time? No. I started events in 200 level. I started branding in 500 level. And I'm currently a lawyer who is practicing energy and project finance. Can others do it? No. Do I think I'm overstretching? Sometimes I actually think I'm doing. Do I think that some will suffer for the other? Of course, you can never except you are 100% perfect. You can never do everything at the same time, but you make one the means to the end of the other. You are doing one now because you know that by the time you are able to do the other part, you already have the capacity to, expand yourself. If you start one thing that you're doing now, if you have discovered yourself in a particular field, and you feel that, oh, in order for me to do this thing, I need to get enough money, or I need to, have a particular influence on people to do those things. You pause that particular stage of your life till you get to that stage. You are able to kickstart the other, and that's how you keep going and you keep going. So do not overstretch yourself and say, because I've discovered all these strengths about me, I need to do everything at the same time. You're probably killing yourself, and one would definitely die along the way. So in order for you to give yourself a break, just ensure that you have a plan. It's called a self-discovery plan. Having discovered the strengths and everything, make sure that you have a plan that, okay, this is what I would do. I need to get to this place. That's why it's very important for people to do goal setting. You need to be smart, all those smart, measurable, actionable, realistic, and time-bound. Goal setting, put your goals. That's why sometimes when people ask, what's your 5-year plan? And you're unable to answer the question, it means that you're actually not thinking about your life. You just want to be a person that is just living life the way it is. So that's the essence of goal setting. You discover that you have capacity to do so many things. Ensure that you put these things in line, and you have, limestones that, okay, this is where I'll get to when I do this part. This is when I get to when I do this part. And I'm sure that you'll be fine at the end of the day. Adebola, I hope I'm able to answer your question.
Very well, excellently. Thank you so much. I don't know if people on the call have questions, but I can't find any in the chat box. Thank you so much, BT. It was a pleasure having you, and I'm so excited to have learned all of this. And I can assure that myself and as many people on this call will also try, their possible best to go through these notes, and find ways to implement all that you have shared. Thank you so much for gracing the occasion, for accepting our invite, and for excellent delivery. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Sorry, before I go, someone said she didn't catch what SMART means. Just go and check online. I think that's being specific, measurable, actionable, realistic, and time-bound. So you make your goal SMART, basically.
Thank you so much. I hope you caught that, Vivian. Thank you, Bimpe. Thank you, BT. They are grateful. And please enjoy the rest of your day. Bye. All right. Okay. So, just before we move to the next session, I want to quickly mention that you would be doing yourself a disservice if you do not have a notepad and a pen, to jot things down. You'd also be doing yourself a lot of disservice if all you want to do, is listening, and you do not want to, action the things that you learn, because these are very important. And I can assure you that if you probably enroll in a coaching, company or coaching school, you'll be paying a lot to get all this value that you are getting on this call. So it is wisdom, right, for you to take notes and to also ensure that you practicalize all these things that have been learned. For me, I have my notes I can show you. And I'm also planning that right after the call, I would, separate about 15 to 20 minutes to just ruminate, and draw an action plan, right? And I think that's the wise thing to do. So please make sure that you are paying attention, you are not distracted, and you are, taking as much notes as you can. Also try to engage, drop your questions in the chat box whenever you have them, so we can ask the facilitator. So without further ado, we'll move to the next session now. And in the next session, we'll be discussing breaking mental and cultural biases. I personally love this topic because, when we curated the topic, to be very honest, it sounded good. And I knew there was just going to be a lot of perspectives that will be shared, a lot of walls that will be, mental walls that will be turned down, a lot of veils that will be lifted. But to be fair, I don't have an idea what, I don't have any disposition. I don't have there is nothing in my head right now about this topic, so I'm ready to absorb everything Destiny is going to share with us. I know that it's going to be, a very insightful discussion. What I basically did for Destiny was to give him an assignment, like, this thing sounds nice, and I know it's going to help us in TVA. Please go and think about it for us. I'll come and share what you think, right? And I know that it's really going to be valuable. So once again, thank you so much, Destiny, for accepting to do this with us. We are very grateful. Thank you for having TVA in mind. Thank you for not stressing us every time we call you. Thank you for making, this work of impacting the society very easy to do. We appreciate you so much. We love you. And we'll have you very, very shortly. So I'll just read Destiny's profile, and then I'll read one of the comments that I found, when I was doing my spy. So Destiny Ogedegbe was a corporate attorney in the law firm of Bawa and Igodalu, African Law Firm of the Year. And that award was, given by Chambers Africa 2022, for the year 2022. Please, okay. I just hope everyone can hear me and see me.
I can.
Okay, thank you. So, yeah, he advises some Nigerian and international clients, including some of the largest international oil companies, in connection with a wide range of corporate finance, project finance, energy, and M&A related transactions and projects. Destiny is a member of the Society for Advanced Legal Studies and has been recognized by JCI International as one of Nigeria's most promising professionals, amongst other recognitions. Destiny is reputed to be the first male student and second person in the over 40-year history of the Faculty of Law, University of Benin, to bag a first-class degree in law. He is also a first-class degree holder from the Nigerian Law School. That's not beans. In the course of his professional and academic endeavors, Destiny has published over 15 works in national and international law journals. He is an author and in many instances classified as a public intellectual who is actively involved in many public intellectual conversations around law, policy, and other socio-political ideologies, which is why we brought you here. He is the founder of Millennials Intellectual Academy, a non-profit organization with the aim of building platforms that would engage students intellectually and provide mentorship for budding professionals. He spends his leisure playing chess, hanging out, or using his social platforms to share insights on standardized ideologies and sociocultural and political issues. Thank you so much for all the welcome, all the hails and the highs in the chat box, all the wows. Thank you so much. Yes, so, I was going to say something. But it skipped my mind, I'll remember. So let me just go to the comment I read. People should be ready. Are you ready? So someone once said that destiny is a personality that he would happily describe intelligent, hardworking, a flawless writer, unrepentantly passionate about love, a voracious reader, and a walking encyclopedia whose vast and sound knowledge of law, as well as ability to provide on-the-spot solutions to complex legal issues, leaves you dazed. In spite of this equality, he is humble, respectful, fashionable, and a good-hearted fellow. Without any iota of doubt, a person would constantly say that destiny be a valuable asset, and is highly recommended. So I was going to say something about, all these our facilitators, they do corporate finance, they do project finance, energy, all those big names, big transactions. And your mind, you're like, what am I doing in my life? What exactly have I even started living? M&A, is deep. Okay, so thank you so much, Destiny. I think we spent a lot of time doing the introductions, but yes, we appreciate your coming, your acceptance of our invite. We appreciate you for the insights and all of those that change people's lives. We're also thanking you in anticipation for the very deep insights that you share with us today. Yeah, I think we're doing okay. So we're welcome, Destiny. Yeah,
Thank
thank
you,
you.
everyone. Thank you. I'm supposed to share my screen, right?
Yes, please, if you want to.
Okay. Just give me a minute, please.
All right, that's fine.
Okay. Suppose I'm sharing my screen now.
Yes, we can see it.
Yeah, so please don't mind me. I've been playing a lot in this room since morning. Can you see me?
Yes, please. But can you put
Interesting.
your
Okay.
slide
Thank you,
on
everyone,
speaker?
for your very warm welcome. Is it?
Hi, Destiny. Yeah, please, can you put the
Hi.
yes, can you put it on slideshow mode so we can see it more clearly?
Oh, okay. Cool.
Yeah, perfect. Thank
Okay.
you.
Cool. So I thought that this was a very interesting topic, breaking mental and cultural biases. It's so typical what I would talk about or write about, It looks like something I could possibly even tweet about. So I wasn't surprised when I was given this topic. But although a small part of me feels bad, why don't I get to talk about LinkedIn and optimization and all of these things that you fancy lawyers talk about? Why do I get this deeply philosophical
Because
issue to
you
talk
are
about?
very intellectual and philosophical, so we felt this is right for you.
I actually get it. If you think about it, that's actually a bias.
I mean, that's how we have perceived you.
Yeah, exactly. Before I talk about this, usually when I have topics like this to talk about, I always take time to reflect and ponder upon what do people like to hear? Is it the same thing that I want to talk about? Because, you know, what people want to hear sometimes is different from what you have to say.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so I try to look at both angles. What exactly do I feel about the topic, and what is it that people want to hear? Sometimes people want you to be politically correct, but sometimes you need to be politically incorrect to be correct, if that makes any sense. So I had thought about the topic, breaking mental and cultural biases, and I was like, okay, rather than just pour my perspective, I will make this a little bit more conversational and relatable, understandable, if you like. And that's really because this is a topic that can be expounded into an entire thesis, because there are several mental biases to start with. There are a lot of cultural biases, or rather, cultural biases manifest in different ways. So it's obviously not something we can talk about exhaustively in an hour, but I will just cherry pick important aspects to discuss. And those are the aspects that I, begrudgingly put in my slides, because left to me, I would probably not just make any slides. But I mean, I thought that it would be good to share something with the audience so you can just basically follow through, and so that the conversation can be a bit more coordinated. Now, before we go into biases squarely, I'll tell you one of the experiences that I had quite recently. Just a couple of them, actually. There was sometime in June, I was coming from the gym someday, and I was going home. I live in Lekki, so I went to the gym somewhere close to St. Nicholas. That's on Lagos Island. So I was going to see a friend before going back home. And it was about 7 p.m. that evening when I saw two guys. One is a graduate from Unilag, the other, I think, is a final year student in Unilag. They saw me, and so one of them said, "Is this Mr. Possible?" I was shocked, because I don't know them, but I'm already quite used to it, in some sense. So I said yes, I responded. And you needed to see the way these two guys dramatically, expressed their surprise when they saw me. It was extremely dramatic. I was laughing all through. I mean, if I were one of these persons who very good with recording moments, I would probably have recorded them more. Usually, when I experience certain moments, it never occurs to me to pick up my phone. Yeah. So one of them was like, I never thought, like, all the times I've thought about you, I've never imagined you in shorts, wearing, trainers, going to the gym, doing all of this. You sound so serious, so uptight, and it's always a very, it's always a very funny way to describe him, because none of my personal friends, none of my close friends would ever imagine that I could be described in that sense, because if I'm not working, I'm almost a clown. Like, I'm almost totally a clown for the persons that know me very personally. They were so surprised. They were, I can't believe you are like dressed this way. I can't believe you are this. I can't believe you are that. And I was like, oh my God. It's really interesting that people can have an idea of you and just stick to it. I have no problems with it, actually. To be very honest, I have a perverse, I derive some perverse pleasure from knowing that is how people see me. Because when people see you that way, they think you are boring. And when they think you are boring, a lot of persons would, some persons will come to you, some other persons would rather not come to you. And to be honest, I think I know enough persons to last a lifetime. So I would rather only know persons who would want to deliberately fish through that initial cloak of, okay, this guy may not be a very fun person. Yeah, so I sort of like derive some pleasure from it, and I understand the perspective. I'm not going to say, oh, I don't understand why people see me that way. I mean, we started this program with Adebola reading my profile. There's a reason for that. I haven't read my profile. You are going to create, your mind needs to create the bias. The bias would be, who is this kind of person? You know, he made the first class. He must be so intelligent. He made the first class yet again at the law school. You know, he has written this and that and this journal and this journal. He must be intelligent. For a number of persons here, if you were to maybe carry out, what's this thing called, a questionnaire, and one of the questions is, how do you think Mr. Possible is an intelligent man? One, strongly disagree, agree, and strongly agree. Most persons here will pick strongly agree because, I mean, someone just read my profile and you can see this pomp and circumstance academically and professionally. So you obviously would have created a bias, but you are not wrong, right? Or you may not be wrong. Probably I'm intelligent, probably even more intelligent than you have conceptualized, but it doesn't make it true, right? It doesn't make it true because, you know, if you are familiar with Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie's The Danger of a Single Story, you know, she said that the problem with stereotypes is not that they are untrue, it is that they are incomplete. So I'm trying to create this prolegomena to what we'll be discussing, because I want you to understand that, you know, to have a bias is actually encouraged. In fact, I encourage people to create biases immediately. It's the intelligent thing to do, is the safest thing to do in almost every circumstance. And then I will go on to discuss where the problem is with biases in general. And I will go on to discuss after that how we could probably address those problems, you know, as individuals. Yes, so now I'm moving my screen. Biases. What's a bias? I define the bias here as a likely false or inaccurate perception about a group or set of beliefs, you know, often based on stereotypes relating to characteristics such as race, such as gender or sexual orientation. And biases could be explicit, in which case that they are direct, or they could be implicit, in which case that they are unconscious. I think most of what we'll be discussing are biases that are quite implicit, biases that are unconscious, biases that are formed immediately when a certain amount of facts are presented to you. You know, Destiny graduated with the first class, is the first guy, is the second person in the faculty's history to make a first class. You know, what's the bias that you create? Destiny is probably is very likely an intelligent person. Like I said, it's likely false. It doesn't mean it is false all the time. It could be true. Your biases can be true. Your biases can be justified, right? But we are not here to talk about biases that are justified, because when biases are justified, it means that there's already evidence that, you know, objectively prove them to be justified. And I use the word objective because sometimes you believe that a bias is justified because you have subjectively defined the parameters for its justification. So what that means is you have a bias about something. There is something that they call there's a certain type of bias that they call it the confirmation bias. The confirmation bias is when you deliberately fish out information that supports your initial view. So most times that would be subjective, or rather that would be you taking an objective data and looking at it through a subjective lens to reach a subjective conclusion that reinforces a bias that you already have. That's not what I'm describing here. I'm saying that a bias can be true and justified because there is actual empirical and objective facts to back up the justification. Well, a lot of times, and indeed that's the crux of this meeting that we're having, a lot of times, most of these biases that we are to discuss, they are not completely true. They are incomplete, basically, and they are usually unconscious. Unconscious in the sense that you don't deliberately set out to have any of these biases. They come to you, you know, based on your orientation. You are oriented to see certain things in certain lights. For instance, a lot of persons would struggle, really struggle to, you know, ascribe certain criteria to someone like me, someone who over time has been considered to be an intellectual. You know, I have a lot of friends who see me and they're like, you don't look like an intellectual at all. I was expecting to see, You know, one of these guys from University of Ibadan, they'll wear goggles and they will keep brush hair, and they are very difficult to talk to. They don't like to wear jewelry. They don't like to look dandy. They just look a little bit rough around the edges. People typically expect me to look that way. I remember when I joined BNI, that's Bawan Igodalo. I met a number of persons who were like, oh, wow, you are the destiny. You don't look like destiny. You don't look like the destiny I had up in my head, right? And people have biases because it's easier to deal with the world that way. People don't have the time to look at everything objectively. First of all, we are not wired to be objective. Objectivism requires a certain level of intelligence, and that's why biases exist in the proportion that they exist, because whether you like it or yes, the majority is not blessed with that level of intelligence. Majority of the people you see do not have that level of intelligence. And this is something that I say a lot of times. To digress a little bit, I tell my friends every time, you'll be grossly mistaken to think that a lot of Nigerians are intelligent. That's so grossly untrue. It's so untrue because if you go into the streets, for instance, and you ask simple questions, you interview the average person, you are not going to find remarkable intelligence. And I think social media sells this idea that, oh, Nigerians are so intelligent. I'm using Nigerians as a case study, not in any ethnocentric or racist sense. I'm just using Nigeria because it's the most relatable country to me and to you guys. There are a lot of other countries too that are currently populated by people of very mild bearings, people of very average intellects. And Nigeria is one of them, in my opinion, because when you consider what the majority gravitates towards, you have to reassess your idea of what constitutes intelligence in a country like Nigeria. Because, if you define intelligence at the base level, intelligence would just be the ability to take data, understand data, process it and analyze it, and then utilize it. That's simply intelligence. But over time, you see people giving an incredible amount of data in this country. They are so pig-headed. They cannot possibly shift their idea or their mentality as to how a particular thing should look. And this is where psychologists from the 70s started to discover, okay, there are such things called biases, cognitive biases now, if you like, psychological biases. Why do people have psychological biases? First, because it is easy to work with a large group of persons when you have biases over the people or what they do, because that way you are able to program, every other subsequent data that comes to you into a certain folder. The reason people are eager to categorize me or any intellectual whatsoever to categorize me in one sense is because it will be too chaotic for them to start thinking, oh, it's actually not this kind of person. Who is this kind of a person? It's too chaotic to be open-minded. Open-mindedness is a trait that comes with a certain level of intelligence, a certain level. I'm not sure what the percentage is, but a certain level of intelligence grants you the ability to access a certain realm of open-mindedness. It was Aristotle that said, when Aristotle was responding to Plato's Allegory of the Cave. I don't know if you've heard about that book. Plato wrote a book called Allegory of the Cave, and it was basically describing how, our perception of the world is limited by our environment. When you grow in the cave, you start to feel like the whole world, is what happens in the cave. You have to leave that cave to see something broader, because you can't be smart about what you don't know. You cannot imagine beyond your ken. Ken, K-E-N. That's an English word for the topmost extent of your imagination. You can't be smarter than that. You can't see more than that. And Aristotle was responding to Plato's Allegory of the Cave when he said that it's the mark of the intelligent to be able to entertain an idea without accepting it. And that's really the problem. It's extremely difficult for the majority to entertain an idea that they are not going to accept. Usually, people entertain the ideas that they want to accept, and that's the only way they want to see it. And then they go on to look for data that confirms what they have already accepted as true. And that is why the easiest way to mark intelligent people is that they are measured. They are extremely measured. I have a hypothesis about Nigeria. Some of my friends agree with this hypothesis. Some of them think it's brazen and wild. And to be honest, I have no scientific backing for it. But I believe that if Nigerians were predominantly intelligent people, we would have been able to come up with a functional society. You know, and I compare Nigeria to a lot of countries that have conscientious individuals, like in Europe, countries like Germany, countries like the UK, people or countries that are extremely conscientious. And by conscientious, I mean, you know, dutiful. You want to do A, you do A. You want to do B, you do B. People work by order and duty. These are society. Nigeria is not such society because conscientiousness is also a trait that is attributed to a certain level of intelligence. I mean, you might disagree with me, but it's just a hypothesis. The hypothesis is that if Nigeria was predominantly intelligent, you know, there are certain things that we experience and that we are drawn to that we will not be drawn to. The most intelligent people I've worked with in my life, in Nigeria and outside Nigeria, they all have one similar trait. There is no correlation scientifically that I'm aware of, but it's an interesting observation. The observation is they are always very simple people and they are extremely measured. I do not know one hyper intelligent person that I have worked with that would be interested in stealing 80 billion naira as the Accountant General of Nigeria just for the sake of it. You might want to say, well, there's no correlation between intelligence and greed, but maybe you want to take a step backwards and really investigate that thing you just said, because the most intelligent people I know, I have read of, I have seen, they just tend to, I mean, it will not account for 100% of the cases, but they tend to not care about a lot of things, especially money, you know, as an end. It's usually just a means, something that is a consequence of every other thing that they do. There is no immediate need to hanker after inordinate amounts of wealth, you know, because it just doesn't make sense. The other day, Bill Gates donated about, I think it was 300 million US dollars for, you know, persons who were held captive in the northeast of Nigeria, the Sambisas, in the Bauchi, you know, and all of those places. And it was, in an interview, he was saying that for some reason he did not get any account of how that money was expended in Nigeria, because to him, he felt like the level of corruption in Nigeria was simply indistinguishable from magic. How do you steal 300 million US dollars when we have a palpable need to address something that is societal, something that impacts on each and every one of us, and then someone steals it? That level of greed is something, quite interestingly, I've not found in the most intelligent people. You know, and when I tell this to my friends, they point me to, oh, look at Ibe Kachuku. He was a graduate from UNL with the first class. And I always mention, you don't judge intelligence by degrees, especially in a country where the educational system I'm looking for the right adjective to describe it. You know, the educational system in Nigeria is tethered with too many impurities. Education is supposed to be a foundation for empirical truth and nothing more. Nigeria is heavily politicized. The educational sector is heavily politicized. There are a lot of things that you can't learn. This is not a decent structure. And that's why I do not like people identifying me with my grades. Most of my social media accounts, I don't like to write on my profile, oh, first class graduates or this, because I feel like if you want to come to the conclusion that I'm an intelligent person, it should be from your interactions with what I say. It should be from your interactions with how my mind works, and not, you know, the degrees that I've acquired. Because while you may know about those degrees, and this is also true for every other first class graduate in Nigeria, you are not aware of the nuances, you know, that have followed through all of those things. You know, what if my classmates were just people of extremely average intelligence, you know, and then I made the first class from Uniben? What if I had gone to Ife, I probably wouldn't make it first class? So these are the nuances that are lost in those stories. And that's why we don't judge intelligence by these metrics. And why am I spending so much time talking about intelligence? It is important to explain my perspectives on this, because when we eventually begin to maybe deep dive into how to deal with biases, you would find that a sizable chunk of why that is even possible in the first place is the extent of your intelligence, you know, and that's simply the truth. You don't, after this session now, for some persons who are on this session who are extremely biased people, people who cannot help themselves but be biased in every sense. Whatever I say now is not going to change, because there is a reason you are that person in the first place. And not only we go into that reason, we are not going to reach a conclusion. We are not going to reach a favorable destination. That destination being you being able to open your mind to the extent that you can now entertain new nuances, complications about other people, and then reformulate your orientation about them or about your biases, right? So I'll go to the next place where I said that, everybody's biased and that is okay. And I've explained that it is okay because it is the safest thing to do, is the most efficient way to think. The only difference is for the not so intelligent class of persons. When they create biases, it is difficult for them to shake it off. That is where the problem is. But whether or not you should create biases in the first place or profile people, is actually encouraged. You don't walk into, let's say, you live in a place that is heavily laden with crime. Let's say you live in somewhere like Mushin, for instance. And then over the last 1 month, you've heard about at least 5 persons who have been either raped or robbed in a particular road that leads to your house. And then on this very fateful evening, you are walking down that road, you find someone who he has tattoos all over his body, he has dreadlocks, he's smoking, and he's in the midst of similar persons, let's say 5 guys. And then you decide to be, what is this word now? You decide to be Sherlock Holmes. And then you tell yourself, well, I don't think I should be biased. I don't think I should profile people. The fact that he has dreadlocks or he's looking this way does not mean that I should assume that he is this kind of a person. That would be stupid. It's stupid because, one, people are almost always aware of what their looks communicate to you. They just don't care nonetheless, or rather, they want you to see them in that light. If, as Mr. Possible, tomorrow I put earrings on my both ears. By the way, I use studs sometimes, and I dye my hair brown. It's not because I'm not aware of what that new look communicates to a couple of persons. I'm obviously aware of it. And, for an intelligent person, it simply means I have accepted that orientation. I've accepted to be described or profiled in that manner, because you cannot act in certain ways and expect that everybody would, probably favor however they look at you or conceptualize you. It's impossible. It's impossible because, first of all, we all look at things differently. Secondly, our depths differ, and depth is a function of intelligence and knowledge put together, right? Our depths differ. Some persons are not so knowledgeable. Some persons are not so exposed. Some persons are not so intelligent. So it's actually functionally impossible for everybody to look at you in the way that you probably prefer to look at. And this is usually the problem with the not so intelligent arguments of, oh, don't address people who dress in a certain way. It's apart from being theoretically insane to have that idea, it's actually functionally impossible. If you walk into a place, you wear an extremely revealing dress, it's impossible to expect everybody to look at you in a certain way. Even the most enlightened people will fail you in the way that they will look at you. So usually, if you're an intelligent person and you dress that way, it means you have conceptualized the way that people are likely to look at you, and you don't mind it. I've worn a store before, wore an earring store, and I went out, and when a lot of persons saw me, they're like, oh, guy, I understand the way they look at me. I just, oh, well, he's not the conservative type of lawyer out there. It's a little bit liberal in the way, I've thought about this, and I don't mind having that perception. I don't mind people having that perception. That's essentially what it means, right? So, but then what differentiates really intelligent people from the not so intelligent people, or what differentiates people who are enlightened, I think that's a better term now, and people who are not enlightened, is the fact that once they hold on to that bias that was quickly and immediately created, maybe your first impression of the person, they find it really hard to walk through that bias. They find it really, really difficult to see anything other than that bias, right? And there's even a bias there's even a name for that type of bias. They call it the Horn effect, HORN. The Horn effect. It simply means that, when you already see someone in a negative sense, you tend to allow that negativity spill over into all their other attributes. For instance, you have a friend who maybe the first time you knew him, he stole. And then 10 years down the line, you are unable to see him differently. Whatever, even when he does the most positive things. Is someone trying to say something?
No, please go ahead.
Okay. So it just feels difficult to look at this person otherwise than what it was 10 years ago. They call it the Horn effect. There's also the opposite of it, which is called the halo effect. When someone has done something positive, you don't imagine them in any sense doing anything negative. You have this person on social media that you that you look up to. They are nice. You've seen them done a couple of nice things, and you have it all up in your head that, oh, this guy must be a nice person. This guy must be a nice person. You never want to imagine them doing anything, irrational. To some extent, you will see that that's also a good way to look at things, because people typically find it hard to change who they are. But it's only an incomplete way to look at it, because most of what you see, first of all, is what people like to show you. And secondly, even if they show you their real selves, there is also the temptation to view them from your own perspective. And your perspective about them might be skewed, because we not only differ in the way that we think, we also differ in the way that we see the world. Our perceptions are incredibly unique to us. Like, think about it. You may not be able to fathom why would anybody in his right senses support Tinubu. Personally, I'm still shocked. I'm always shocked, as enlightened as I would believe myself to be. When I go on Twitter and I see people supporting Tinubu, I'm shocked. I can't, for the life of me, understand it, right? But I know that the way you see the world is extremely different. It's so different that it would amaze you how, if you open someone's head, it's exactly the opposite of what is in yours. So everything you are trying to make them see is so pointless. And that's why I always say that with almost all the things that we battle with, interpersonal relationships, finding love, one of the greatest problems is you can only meet people as deeply as you've met yourself. You can find a person who is incredibly deep, or has this depth of understanding, who is exposed and all of that, but you are not, and you're always going to have that friction trying to connect with them, because you will see things so differently. The differences would always be the source of your argument, and you would never quite understand why it is a recurring source of argument, because we are extremely complicated individuals with very unique senses to our perception. And that's why intelligent people unmistakably gravitate towards intelligent people, because it is so difficult to deal with the other divide. It is extremely difficult to deal with the other divide, right? So it goes back to the point I was making. And the point is, whether or not you have a bias or you create a bias is not the problem, because sometimes they can be useful. Take an example of the scenario I just created with, a society that is predominated by criminal activities, and usually the criminals look in a certain way, and then you see someone who looks that exact way. It is impossible not to profile the person, except, of course, you are not a smart person, because if you are smart, immediately you see the person, what you have seen, that current fact, it would correlate with the conceptualizations or the other facts that you already had initially in your head, and you are going to reach an immediate conclusion that it is not safe. It is not safe to act in a certain way. Whether or not you would alter that position would depend on what those persons eventually bring to bear, and whether or not you can accept what they bring to bear is a function of the extent of your enlightenment or your intelligence in that sense. So you will see down that there is already a problem. There's already a problem with biases from the way that I've conceptualized it. Cognitive biases, as I defined there, are unconscious errors in thinking that arise or are problems related to memory, attention, and other mental mistakes. You see that the key word here is that they are unconscious, and which means when you are biased, a lot of times you don't know. And can you really solve a problem you are not even aware of? So that brings us to the next question. How exactly do you become aware of your problem. How do you develop self-awareness? Some persons are more self-aware than the others, which means a person can be biased. They don't know that they are biased. They don't feel that they are biased. And even when you tell them, they don't tend to look at it in that way. How exactly do you make those people see things differently, right? So that's something I will discuss in the next slide. But this is just basically an iteration of the various types of mental or cognitive biases that have direct implications on our safety, on our interactions with others, and on the way we make judgments and decisions in our daily lives, right? So if you make a decision based on certain cognitive biases, you are very likely to be wrong. You are very likely to hit a brick wall. Let's say, for instance, you are an American. Because you have this bias that Nigerians or Africans act in a certain way or live in a certain way, there are decisions you make about coming to Nigeria or Africa in general that will be incorrect because they do not tally with the reality of Africans or Nigerians in this sense. They are wrong because they were hinged on biases that were in themselves inaccurate, right? So what does that tell you? It tells you that the first solution to biases is knowledge. But whichever way you like, whichever way you want to look at it, the closest way to bring people to an understanding, or to bring people closer to the understanding that, okay, you don't need certain biases, it's knowledge, right? When people know, they become informed, right? What they choose to do with that knowledge is simply a function of their intelligence, right? If they are intelligent people, oh, good and fine, you are more likely to get people who can alter their biases from time to time. Because when knowledge meets intelligence, you have wisdom, and a wise person knows better than to judge people based on very ephemeral parameters. Let's say you are walking on the streets, and because a person said a certain thing, you categorize the person as one thing. The chances that you will be wrong is so practical because humans are extremely complicated individuals, and when you grow your knowledge base, you are very, very likely to come to that position where you can shape shift your mentalities. Now, knowledge includes both theoretical and practical knowledge. And by theoretical knowledge, I mean knowledge of just studying or knowledge of observation. You are observing things and traits and behaviors and people and what have you. Or you are studying, you are going to YouTube to watch an insane amount of content about different philosophies of life, trying to understand human nature and what have you. There's also the practical side to things. The practical knowledge will be exposure. It will be knowledge gained by exposure, visiting new places, meeting new people, exposing yourself to, the cultures of other people, the preoccupations of other people. When you have both theoretical and practical knowledge, or one of them, you already have one foundation, one out of two foundations that you need to cure the problem of cognitive or even cultural biases. What's a cultural bias? I think I defined that I said cultural bias is just a formal term for ethnocentrism. And ethnocentrism simply means when the idea that your cultural practice or your customs are the correct standards that other cultures should follow, right? Now, that raises a philosophical question. Are there cultures that are more superior to the other? I probably would think that there are. I personally believe that the Western culture is superior to a lot of cultures. Superior in the sense that even if you were blindsided to a lot of cultures from the upstart, you can almost correctly tell that certain practices make no practical sense, by your usual, by ordinary or natural intelligence and conscientiousness. You can tell that certain practices make no sense. And you can almost tell that those practices were always going to, at some point, be dropped because they make no practical sense or they serve no functional purpose to society. I'll give you an example. Even before the Westerners came to Nigeria or to Africa, there were several instances of people killing twins. Do you think that's a practice that would have inured? Let's say Westernization did not occur. I doubt, because except the culture is peopled by individuals who have no capacity for independent thought, which is not possible. But at some point, every society would generate people who independently would criticize the foundation of those societies themselves, right? The Greeks had it. When Greece began to develop as a nation, they started having people who questioned the philosophies and ideas of Greece itself. You had people like Socrates, and that's why Socrates was killed after some point, because he felt like he was basically turning the individuals against Greece itself. You had Xenophon, you had Plato, you had Aristotle. You would always find people capable of independent thought who would question the fabrics of those societies in themselves. So at some point, even if the Westerners did not come to Nigeria, the killing of twins would have stopped by itself, because over time, people would question those practices. What functional relevance does this serve, right? We did not need the Westerners in Nigeria to do away with the idea, let's say in the East now, where a man dies, he has no son, all the properties goes to his brother, even when he has, a litany of female children. And then the wife is compulsorily required to marry the brother of the husband. When she made, she initially made a choice to marry the man, and then now she has to be forced to marry the brother. We did not even need the Westerners to come to a point where we say, you know what, let's do away with these customary practices. The Supreme Court, in a number of cases, Ogedegbe and Urachi, Modekun and Iwuchukwu, decided of itself that, well, these practices are repugnant to natural justice, equity, and good conscience. You might say, well, the entire idea of repugnancy, the repugnancy test in itself was a decoration of the English law. But even without the English law, if you observe closely, you will see that the Yorubas were not practicing the same thing. That was not the practice in the North, and that was not the practice in the South, like the Edos. We don't force women to marry their brothers when the husband dies. So the fact that there was an intrinsic split or appreciation for all of these cultural practices first tells you that of ourselves, we understood those practices to be questionable, practices that were on a bit extreme, and over time, we are always going to revisit those cultural practices. So does that lend credence to the fact that there are probably some cultural practices that are superior to the other? And the parameter for superiority now will be which practice is most likely to be accepted by a man of ordinary intelligence, who is unaware of other practices anywhere else. And you will find that a lot of things, a lot about the Western culture has been accepted everywhere. The Chinese have accepted a sizable chunk of Western culture. As communist and conservative as the Chinese, they've accepted a sizable chunk. The Africans too have accepted a sizable chunk, because we don't see the need to carry machetes and be running after our twin brothers and killing them anymore, because it makes no sense, right? Now, but the fact that you think a cultural practice or a culture can be superior to the other, right, does not mean that you cannot accept other cultures. Because first of all, your idea of the superiority of that culture might not be correct, because it now depends on which aspect of the culture we are talking about, and why those cultures exist in the first place. So a cultural bias exists when, for instance, a Yoruba man feels, well, being Yoruba, the way Yorubas do things is better than the way Igbos do things. When I came to Lagos, I observed a lot of things, a lot of differences. In fact, I had cultural shocks. I found the Yorubas to be the least conservative. Yorubas are quite liberal, they are more accepting of differences, even in terms of the way they structure their families, they are pretty more accepting of those things. The Yorubas they are very present people. All my Yoruba friends, for instance, are very present people. And by present, I mean, if we go to a party right now, the first set of my friends who are likely to dance are the Yoruba guys or the Yoruba ladies. They are present. They are not here thinking of something else. They want to enjoy life in the way that it should be enjoyed. And I actually like that about the Yorubas. You will find differences across all the tribes, across all of them. Sometimes you will cherry pick one difference and say, well, I think in this aspect, this culture is better than the other. But then the problem with doing all of that is, are you able to objectively accept, the peculiarities of each of these cultures and work with them? Because the only way you can fully integrate into a society is if you are able to open your mind and accept the variety of differences that exist between each cultural sect. And that's why we have tribal issues in Nigeria when it comes to maybe running for political offices, because these tribes suspect that the other tribes has not fully integrated their own differences. Yorubas don't trust the Igbos because they don't think the Igbos are very welcoming to the Yorubas, and the Igbos are not so welcoming to the Yorubas because you see there's a disintegration in terms of acceptance. And this also goes back to the point I was making initially about Nigeria not being a place where people are predominantly intelligent. I think intelligence, the way I like to see intelligence, I think intelligence is simply beyond the denotative meaning in the dictionary. I think intelligence is simply knowing what to ignore. And that's why intelligent people would usually have a very carefree attitude towards a lot of things, at least the ones that I have noticed. I'm not talking intelligent people because I'm not talking intelligence because you can read a book. I'm talking about people who are intelligent because of their capacity for actual independent thoughts, you know. And in all my observation, they always know what to ignore. Things like, oh, you are a Yoruba man, you are an Igbo man. Those things are barely ever in the conversation when they are interacting with people, or they are interacting with things, you know, or they're trying to make decisions. They've eliminated all of those biases immediately, because that's what intelligence helps you do. Intelligence is merely knowing what to ignore, right? So going back to cultural biases, there's
Hi,
this.
Destiny.
Who's that?
Our time is up. I mean, well, our time is fast spent.
Okay.
I don't know if you can
So, yeah.
round off in about 2 minutes.
2 minutes. Okay. I think I'll just round up here.
Okay.
So to cut my bromidic sermon short, how can you deal with cultural biases? I think the first, like I mentioned, the first way to deal with bias in general, any sort of bias whatsoever, is to gain either theoretical or practical knowledge. And I don't know how effective that is in a society like Nigeria, where people do not like to study anymore. I find myself almost every time spending a nearly unhealthy amount of time reading, you know, different books. You know, I read books of, before I had this, I was reading this book on chess because I'm a lover of chess. I read different amounts of books. I have fictions. I have books on philosophy. This Americana that I bought like some weeks ago, even though I've read it, I just want to read it again for the fun of it, because I think that reading just expands your mental model. And when your mental model is expanded, you are able to, you become more accepting of differences. You don't think in terms of black and white, you begin to see the gray lines. And I think the problem we have generally, interrelational problems with dealing with people, or with dealing with cultures, or with dealing with belief systems, or with dealing with religion, is because we cannot find the middle. You can actually entertain a thought. You don't necessarily have to always accept it, but you can be welcoming of it. You know, that B is not A does not necessarily mean B contradicts A. Sometimes B complements A. You know, some of the differences that you have problems with, they don't contradict your own belief systems. They complement those belief systems. It's just a question, it's just a function of how open-minded or aware, you know, how aware enough that you are. So I wrote down a couple of points here that could help. Build awareness, educate yourself, and remain open. These three flow as one, you know. When you educate yourself, you begin to build awareness, because the more you read, the more you realize the depth of your own ignorance. So you become more self-conscious and more self-aware, you know. And just like Carl Jung, one of my favorite philosophers, said, he said, until you're able to make the unconscious conscious, it will continue to direct your life, and you will call it faith. So it means you must be able to introspect into yourself and see, you know, some of those clogs that impede your ability to open your mind and accept things objectively. So you can only do this when you build self-awareness, and you can only build self-awareness when you enlighten yourself through either theoretical and or practical knowledge, you know. And then after building that, you must be able to remain open. If you see now, I use the word remain. I didn't say be, because it's one thing to be open, is one thing to remain open. You are not just a thing that is, you are also a thing that is becoming, you know. And so for every phase of your life, the ability to remain open and not become standoffish is is a trait that you have to consciously monitor, because at some point you can become so stiff and you don't even realize it yet. So you must be able to remain open. And the only way to remain open is the other two things that I mentioned here. Always avoid generalizations. When a topic comes to you, don't allow yourself to be moved by the temptation of the bandwagon effect, by what a lot of persons think about it. No. Always ask yourself, what exactly do you think about it? Because there is a good reason, there is also a real reason, right? The good reason may be what is popular, but the real reason is that one is unique to you as a person. So you must always ask yourself, what do I think about this thing, as Destiny, or as Binkbe, or as Adebola, as Muyiwa, as an individual? What exactly are my thoughts about this? And how do I integrate that thought into the general structure in a politically correct manner, or if you like, an impolitically correct manner, depending on what serves your purpose? Okay, so I believe that if you can work with these 5 parameters, you will be able to deal with a lot of biases. Obviously, this is not a one-day project. This is not a one-year project. This is probably a 5-year project. You need a lot of studying. You need to understand a lot of things, to be able to develop your mind to that extent where it becomes objectively rational, even in your sleep. So yeah, I think my time is up. So I will just leave it here before I bellyache over the things that I've already discussed. So thank you guys for having me. I hope that this was insightful or helpful enough, given the limited time that I have. Yeah,
Thank you so much, Destiny. I mean, I agree.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Destiny. I agree that time is limited. I mean, I've seen people's chats. People have requested that we give you extra time to complete the presentation and all, but we just have to cut it because this is the first time. This is the first session, and we don't want the situation where people will then get discouraged that we're not keeping to time. That is, the only reason why we'll be ending now. I am personally enjoying the session, and I would really have loved us to continue. Thank you so much. And just to, I hope you all already understand why Destiny had to take this topic, because I can't think of any other person. Thank you so much. I learned a lot. And if you can read through the chats, you see that a lot of people have been saying, it's so insightful.
I'm actually just going over the chats and I'm seeing all the times I was prompted. I'm so sorry I didn't check.
No, it's fine. It's fine. It was a conversation that you clearly enjoyed, and we also enjoyed as well. Thank you so much. I'm grateful, particularly because you were able to. It was more like we handed to you a shell that you had to break into, and you were able to really show us the different perspectives and different faces to these things that we never even really thought about. So take home for me really is the fact that biases are normal, and they are normal. You even mentioned the fact that it's even good to create a certain bias, a particular way that people can perceive you, because it sort of sheds off some unnecessary, you tend to attract the things that align with those biases that you have created, and repel those other things that do not align with it. And so it's good that even it will even help your focus, that people perceive you a certain way. However, we should also be careful about, the unconscious biases we have about people, about really, frivolous things. You'll be surprised at, how some people think, they just feel the way this person, said this thing just now, I just feel she's this kind of person, and they zero in on that, and they don't want to care anymore. So this has been really enlightening, because I also have those kind of biases. I'm like, she's too fair. She's too, this fairness is too much. Am I sure she's not something else? And then I just hold that kind of, I don't want to be that person's friend because I feel she's just too fair. So we have these things, and I like to listen to Destiny because it makes me question my thoughts, question some of these things that I think about, and really see, does it really make sense? Because yes, there's a good there's a good reason to do something, and there's a real reason for it, and we have to, it's a sign of intelligence to really question, things when they are handed to you, to really check right? Whether it is a good reason or there's a real reason for it. So
Exactly.
the answer to breaking mental and cultural biases, because there are a lot, and sometimes it's even personal to us, but the answer really is knowledge. And I love that the last session we had, last year, last masterclass, you were teaching us about how to write, and you mentioned a lot of things about, the more you write, it even helps your thinking. And you also said the more you read, the more you are able to write well. And I love that this session is also boiling down to reading, right? Because it's a virtue that is fast becoming extinct, in our generation. So everyone on this call, if you are not reading, you are not growing. If you are not reading, you are limiting yourself to the biases that you have created in your mind, and it's not going to help you at all. So expose yourself to both theoretical and practical knowledge. Awesome session. I love it. I'm grateful. Thank you so much, Destiny, for spending time with us. We know that there's really nothing we can give you to quantify this depth of insights that you shared, but we remain grateful, always grateful. Posterity is grateful as well. Thank you so much.
The questions on the group chat, on the chat box, I suspect that because of time, you could just compile them. So what I would do is, if you have a database for all the persons that have registered, I would respond to the questions via email. Just respond to each of the questions and send to you. You could forward
makes sense.
That would be
perfect.
A better way, since we don't have all the time. Because I can see some questions that would really be helpful to, extrapolate the points that I've made earlier.
Perfect. Yes, we have the data to share with you. Thank you. It was nice having you. Thank you so much, Destiny.
Nice having you guys too. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a good day.
I have plantain here to eat, so I will need to excuse myself. So
please, we really you. Thank you. Bye. So guys, thank you so much for joining today's session. Apologies that we're 2 minutes late. But I hope that it's been very helpful, very, very helpful. And just like I said, everything you've heard today would not do you any good until you have taken time, listen to the recording when you have access to them, look through your notes, really ruminate on these things and try to implement in your life, because that is how you would have made good use of these 2 hours. Else, it would have just been a waste of time. And it's not good for you to keep accumulating knowledge without, making use of it, without practicing, so it doesn't do anybody any good to join classes like this without actually taking time to think of how it can benefit you and the changes that you can make in your life going forward. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining. Thank you for also staying till now. It is really, really appreciated. So we'll take the closing prayer now. And please don't forget that we'll continue next week, Saturday. Oh, yes. So sorry, just a minute, please. So I see the questions in the chat box. I see the questions in the chat box, and please be rest assured that we'll get back to you. I'm sure that people are on this call trying to, gather all the questions that has been posted. So we will definitely provide responses to them, and we'll also share the slides. Please mute your mic, please. We'll share the slides. We'll reach these facilitators and see if we can get the slides and share them with you. Also, please try to register for the masterclass. If you are yet to register, please, because we need your database. We want to be able to, be in touch with you sometimes, very soon, just to be able to, provide mentorship if possible, answer some of the questions you have, and just sort of, continue in this learning journey with you. So it's important that you register and that you provide, all the details that we require from you. Thank you so much for joining. Also, please invite your friends, speak to your friends about this program. It is very important. It is not good that you are, getting impacted on the platform. It is free, and then you are not informing your colleagues. So it's important to also speak to people about it, invite as many people as possible, share the registration link so that we can all grow together. The idea really is for the entire nation to be changed. So next week, we're having 2 sessions as well. Academic excellence, a platform for a successful career. I love that BT referred to it in a session. She talked about 3 things that can make for a very successful life and career. And she talked about grades. She talked about your network. And she talked about, there's something else that I don't have time to think about now. So yeah, but she mentioned 3 things. And academics, your academic grades, very, very important. So please, we'll be having a busy Eradiri. She's also a double first class lawyer, just like Destiny. And she's currently an attorney at Owando, Dubai. Very, very important. Yeah, business skills, that name. I'm trying to remember. Okay. So she is going to be speaking about academic excellence and how you can, use that as a tool for, a successful career. We'd also have Michelle Agatishe from Olaniwa Ajayi. She is going to be speaking to us about how you can build a culture of excellence. So yes, we appreciate the number of turnover that we have today, the number of turnouts, that we have today, and we're expecting that we will double and even triple this number by next week, Saturday. You can also join via our YouTube channel, or this Zoom platform. I think that's all for now, and I'll take the closing prayer. Thank you, Jesus, for a beautiful session. Thank you for all that we learned. Thank you for the insights, the improvement. We appreciate you for the growth that we are even seeing in our lives already. Thank you for expanding our thought process. Thank you for opening our minds. We really appreciate you. I will pray that all that we have learned, we also receive an ability to improve and to actually implement these things and to grow in every area of our lives in Jesus' name. In Jesus' name we have prayed. Amen. Thank you, guys. Thank you, guys. Thank you so much for joining. And we hope to see you next week. Bye.
Bye. Thank you so much, Stevie. Thank you, everyone.